Hey, all right. So we made it. We finally made it. It's happening,
Yes, we
man.
did, yeah, man.
It's happening. So first, who are you?
I guess you should present yourself first because you're.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we have no real names in this podcast. We are.
Or in the real world.
Or what?
Or in the real world.
In the real world, also, we don't have names. It's just stuff that some old people named us. And so we are in this channel. We are Refused Nature, and this is our podcast. And I am Subject A.
And I'm Subject B.
Yeah, and this is a podcast where we are ordinary people talking about everyday type of topics, and it is for a certain type of audience. So if you are very young, or you're very immature, or you're delicately get offended, then this might not be for you. But if you're actually searching for something that makes sense in life, stay tuned. That's it,
Yeah,
actually. No?
yeah.
Okay, cool. So, well, by the way, these are just like our tests type of pilot, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's not like maybe it's not gonna get released.
Yeah.
So, or if it is gonna, it's gonna be for the bonus content. So
Yeah.
stay tuned about that.
Yeah. And basically the topic for today for us to explore in this test that we're doing is gonna be the generational gap between millennials and Generation C, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which in my opinion, or maybe my assumption, is just my generation versus your generation. But
Okay.
But first of all, like, do you consider yourself Generation C?
I don't think in the sense of that if you know like the trends on TikTok or Instagram, I don't get those in my feed. I only get like violent family car crashes and cartels cutting off heads, stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
And
So you're more like a terrorist, not like a Generation C.
yeah, and also it's either that or like very cute cat videos and animal videos. Yeah.
But so back to the, so you don't consider yourself as part of like the influence trends
No.
that happen in your generation normally.
No, because I don't follow them. They don't. They're not like shown to me. They're not targeted to me.
So how would you? Sorry.
Yeah.
So
No, that's it. I'm not. I don't feel part of the whole thing.
So how would you define like your generational etiquette or label?
There's the Zillennial.
The Zillennial?
Yeah, which
Okay.
was like a guy did a study about that and like created a whole new
A guy from where or?
some university, like
okay.
a professor,
Okay, cool.
which also may not be true. So don't trust us 100%.
Yeah, we're not fact makers. When we do facts, we will try to explain our methodology and how we achieve the data. But most of the things we will say, as in many other podcasts, it's just bullshit, no?
Yeah.
Like, we don't really know. No? Like everything's made up in a way. So no, but it's interesting what you're saying. So what defines this generation that you're talking about?
My the made up one.
Yeah, the millennials. You call
Yeah,
them?
it's just like people like in between those two generations that are breaching the gaps like age wise between the millennials and the Gen Zs.
Okay.
So it's like in the middle of them, they made like a whole new generation.
So it's like people that don't really fit in
Any
either
of
group,
those, yeah.
and they kind of mash together aspects of both generations.
Yeah.
Huh? So what aspects of Generation C do you think you live by?
I TikTok and Instagram. I did have TikTok for a year, I guess, and then I deleted it for a year, and now I have it again, and I watch it every day for like a long time.
Cool. I'll write a note about that. But other thing I want to know is that so language-wise, so what things do Generation C people say, and what things millennials say? So in terms of expressions, I hear a lot of like micro terms. Like you guys use a lot of acronyms.
Okay.
In terms of like I don't know. For millennials, it was like LOL. When you're gaming, is
Yeah.
GG. No, good game.
Yeah, I
all this
mean
type
we
of thing.
still use those,
Okay, cool.
but I think now it's becoming not that much Gen Z, because like Gen Z are also growing older, and it's more of the next generations after Gen Z,
Ah, okay.
because they're the ones that now make the memes and all the terminology,
Yeah.
and it's kind of cringe, and
Yeah. Cringe is
we
that.
we also don't understand it, because it doesn't make sense, but I guess it doesn't have to make sense to be trendy.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, yeah, we can go into that deeper later because the cringe and the absurd, I think, are very important aspects that kind of define a generation from the other one.
And also our podcast.
Also, a podcast, literally, yeah. Because but okay, back to the topic in sense of
Yeah.
you Generation C, and then we're talking about millennials. So, what things do you have from the millennials, well, or that you feel
I
are
feel
more
like
millennial?
I feel millennial in a sense that I feel left out from some of the Gen Z stuff. For example, when somebody shows me a meme and I don't know the meme, and I'm like, am I supposed to laugh here or whatever? Or if I show somebody again a meme and they're like, what the fuck, this meme was like 5 years ago trendy, and I was like, okay. And yeah, in that sense, I feel
And music-wise, culture-wise,
music-wise, if I would have to define, it's way older than millennial.
yeah, it's maybe Generation X, no, or what is it, Boomer? Like
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
like
I
you
think
listen
Boomer
to
is-
Boomer
yeah.
music, no?
Yeah, but
Cool.
it's yeah.
What are your favorite? What you will classify as Boomer artists? in
I
music?
mean anything like I don't know if that's right, but like 70s is the boomer music for me, because like in 60s also some of them, like you got Beatles, Pink Floyd, stuff like that, which is the shit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
that's also Grateful Dead, and yeah, I listen to like this type of music. So
Moment of silence, man.
Moment
You
of
really went there. Like
Yeah.
your memory went like into music lane. you had this introspection in it. No, that's cool. Like I sense that a lot of the generational gap it's because of a human need that we have to kind of identify ourselves and to become different than the previous generation. And I think that's where kind of what you're talking about has a lot of that momentum in sense of the cringe and the absurdity. I think that any recent generation will always look for something that is cringy and absurd for the previous generation for them to be identified in that sense, no? And you can see this in also music, no? So you see how grunge replaced hard rock, no?
But they also look for it in the next generation, not only
Yeah.
the previous. 'Cause
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the next generation is always supposed to be the better one,
Yeah.
and they're like, but are they really, or is the world failing?
I don't know. I mean, that's a great point. So there is definitely depends on how you want to see it. So even this topic as millennials and Generation C, you could see it as a versus exercise or as a collaborative type of exercise in the sense of definitely there could be evidence that says that this new generation is way more fragile and way more dependent on technology and in social media and very clingy and it's a society educated by internet while the previous society maybe was educated by radio and TV and all these types of things and that could give certain evidence to say that we're kind of messed up as a society. In the other way, like what we were talking the other day when we were going for the because we're doing an internship, but that has nothing to do with this. But we were going to we were talking about this also, and when we were going in the elevator, we were talking. I was saying, I think your generation is the most cool generation I've ever seen, because you guys are multi-talented. You know how to use technology. You have very good focus in certain things that you want. Look at yourself. Like now you're 20 years old and you're starting this project.
21.
Sorry, you're 21. My bad. Let's cut that. So you are starting these projects and you're just really going with it. It's all good. Which is something that could be repetitive through the time. A lot of 19-year-olds to 21-year-olds have done projects and interesting things. But the fact that you have the capabilities and the resources to do that, I think that's great, and that speaks highly about your generation.
But then do you think, is it my generation, or is it also the new generations that are, because I told you that the place I work at, we have like very young, like kids, 14-year-olds that work there.
Yeah, I think the issue with this is that my generation is having kids and we're terrible parents. because we are not in a bad sense. There might be some of us that are good parents, I guess, but in the sense of, because of the current situation with economics and society and all these types of things, you don't have the time or the resources to spend that much time with your kids. And also you don't have the time or the resources to actually educate yourself properly on how to become a parent.
But you can say that for
any generation.
Any time, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So then there we go to maybe the resolution or the synthesis we can grab from this. We're all fucked up in our own way. We will all fail in many ways. That's kind of like an attribute of humanity in itself. I don't necessarily believe that there's a better generation or a worse generation. But definitely I see that there's hope in the newer generations, because they have a fresh perspective, which all new generations have, by the way. They have a fresh perspective on life, and they don't carry all the emotional, ideological leverage that my generation, for example, carried. And I think that's the trauma, for example, that parents my age are bringing to children, because they are bringing their ideology, their religion, their way of life, their economical ideas to their kids, and trying to shape them according to that, which there's no foul in that, but still at the end you will traumatize them somehow, and still somehow you will also help them in that sense. So it's kind of delicate.
But then it's up to them if they wanna improve and get like help or help themselves with that trauma. Yeah. And leave the trauma behind and pick up like the good stuff that their parents gave them. Yeah. Because you can always blame your parents or whatever. Yeah. And they obviously can be wrong in the way they've raised you. Yeah. But you can still change after that. It's not like that's the way they showed me, that's the way I'm gonna
it's very deep,
live it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Actually, that's a very important point, because you're absolutely right. So the fact that you're taking responsibility about your life and you can actually define how do you move on after this trauma is the way to go forward. And I completely agree with that. But what would you think are certain characteristics in your generation, or certain traumas that are common in your generation, or certain traumatic behaviors that are common in your generation? I can tell you of mine also.
Do please.
Yeah, so my generation, I think, has a lot of issues with worthiness. I think my generation has a lot of issues with attention. I think we were some of the first generations that either we had dysfunctional families or we had very busy families. Therefore, we always had a figure in our lives that was not really putting that much attention to us as we would have decided. In my personal case, my father, he was a very busy man. He was a Christian pastor, chemical engineer, and he was not around that much. And although he was a hero for someone else, for me, he was absent. And that created a certain void in myself that later translated into depression, that translated into trying to seek for attention, create a podcast,
But was that what? Did your father had to do that, or he chose to do that?
I think he was he had an internal conflict that didn't give him enough clarity to define what he actually wanted. Okay. No, I think, now to be very frank, that's a great question, because I think he decided that.
Okay, so it's not like it was like a financial situation that he needed to be at work all day, for example.
That could be. I think we were also kind of tight sometimes economically, but considering his characteristics, that should not be the case. I mean, if you are a chemical engineer smart, capable, yada yada, then why should you put yourself through so much economical stress? You know, like what is stopping you from actually having a more comfortable life in that sense? I don't know. There's always shit going on, right? Like there's always conditions and situations that are messed up. Of course, I understand. But that doesn't take away the fact that you are responsible for your family and you should still show up.
Yeah.
But I think it's good point that you made, because he chose to be this ideal figure of a Christian pastor, I guess, and that in his mindset required sacrifice.
But it's also because the Christian pastor is like a big thing.
Yeah.
You like a lot of people look up to you, so
Yeah.
that's also part of the maybe part of the why he chose to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe. Sorry.
It was making him feel fulfillment, I guess, or whatever.
I think so. I definitely think so. So yeah, in that sense, we can also see or understand that he was living an ideal scenario for himself in a way. No, like, and if you analyze Christianity, at least in the last 20 years or something like that, last 30 years, actually Christianity in itself, there's a lot of sacrifice in the idea of Christianity, although it's not really biblical, but whatever. There's this idea that you need to be somebody that sacrifices for the people you love. You gotta carry your cross, you know. You gotta follow the steps of Jesus. And what were the steps of Jesus? Having a bunch of people follow you around, and at the end they kill you, no? So that's kind of like the simplified version of it. And a lot of people run with it. A lot of people accept torture, accept violence, accept suffering in their lives because they believe that they are following the steps of Jesus. I'm not in a position where I can say that's right or wrong, but definitely I see that can create a toll in the loved ones you have around you, in your family, stuff like that. So yeah, that's that. Also coming from a third developed country, what is that? Like a third world country, whatever that means. I think there's also other types of trauma that have to do more with the culture, especially dysfunctional families and these types of things. But in general, I think those are the traumas that I could describe. And what about you?
Yeah, I think you mentioned your father. I think I can also say about that. It's like because when they used to live back in my country, he had like a automobile service shop with his like colleague they were like best buds, whatever, and then he used to spend like the whole day from the morning until late at night, because it was what was needed to like survive. And that was also like a moment where my father had to be like at work even on the weekends. But then we also had like holidays like at random. They're just like my father finishes work, comes home and is like, okay, pack your stuff, we're gonna have like the weekend wherever.
Sweet.
But then my uncle was a big part of my life as well, and I used to look up, I still do, to him, because he's a very cool guy. And I even like I've tried to be more like him than my father, so that's cool. That's like part of the, I don't know if it's, maybe it's trauma and then it's resolved with this, like looking up to somebody else. That's
and also it's cool that the way you narrate this, because in a way you're kind of expressing what the facts were, but also you're saying, but I gotta cut some slack for the guy, because he did actually come some weekends and we would just go out and have a good time, no, in that sense. So that's cool. But what type of characteristics or traits do you see in this generation or your generation that kind of are like more specific for that generation? Like
I think
insecurity.
Procrastination.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
I thought my generation also procrastinates a lot. But what do you see in your generation?
Every like university, like where I'm at now, everybody procrastinates. Like we've never done anything like in the set deadline.
Yeah.
It's like it's the last 3 days. We gotta sit and code the project, stuff like that. We gotta it's
what do you think is that?
I think it's creativity. It just is born when you're like stressed, or I've also found it. I just when I sit and do stuff, that's also when it happens. But to get to the point where I sit and do stuff, that's the hardest part.
So it's the starting.
Yeah.
The starting
Yeah.
effect. I gotcha.